Okay, maybe before to work on the tutorial, then I got an example of in detail calculation of the displacement for the earth solution when you have a cylinder. I will explain you how to do that, and then I will let the material to Kesavan, so you can have all the material. I got a question just before lunch. How to calculate the displacement at a point below the surface. Okay, I will explain you how to do that. This is a tutorial that we do with our students at INSA in the past. I don't know this year if we will have time to do that, but before to start the tutorial, I would like to finish with the effect of inclusions, heterogeneities on the contact problem. Okay. Then this time the motivation of the work is due to the problem of contact between composite materials and steel materials, for example. You know that for new engines, very often the first stage of compressor is made with composite blades, and then the contact between the blade roots and the disc is a contact between a composite material and steel. Okay. Maybe this is not in the slide, but maybe I will show you later. It's very easy to, even if you have a composite materials with a polymeric matrix, with a type of matrix, it's possible, or carbon matrix, it's possible to wear a steel material. Okay, we did some experiments about that. I think this is not in the slides today, but this is possible. Then just the motivation of the work. You can see on the left what we call, in fact, a 3D composite, because there is a mesh in all the directions. It's possible to simulate that with, we cannot see because the quality of the screen is not as good, but here you can see the fibers that are here, for example. We were able to simulate that by using ellipsoidal inclusions. Then there is a superposition of many ellipsoidal inclusions that reproduce the fiber shape. I will go back to this picture later. Here, typically, this is an indentation of a composite material, and this is the contact area if you have a uniform, homogeneous material, and this is the contact pressure distribution. You can see that this is no more the Hertzian solution. Okay. And this was the motivation of the work. We started to work on this problem 15 years ago. And at the macroscopic scale, when you do experiments or simulation, this is again the same type of curve. This is vertical loading, the normal load, versus the displacement. And you can see that if you indent the material in one point or in another point, this is about the scale of the problem. There is no difference. Okay, then at the macroscopic level there is no difference, but locally you can see that there is a lot of difference. And I will show you that sometimes you have a peak of pressure here, which can be up to 5 times the Hertzian pressure if you consider the material as homogeneous. Okay, then this is a motivation. Again, this is a pressure distribution when you indent at different point of the surface. And then after that we move to the viscoelastic contact problem. Then I will go back to the problem of contact between a tire and the road. I think I will speak about that tomorrow when I will speak about viscoelastic problem, and also the contact between the shoes and the floor, which is very interesting for sportmen to have a better adhesion if you can. Okay, then I will speak first about the effect of a spherical inclusion, then a few very simple images that you can keep in mind. What happens when you have a cluster of inclusions, not only one but many inclusions. And then after that I will speak about ellipsoidal inclusions, because you can make a spherical one or you can elongate it in different directions. And the application is for composite material. Okay, then this is, in fact, the numbers are not very important, but just to have an idea of to what it corresponds. But everything can be done in a dimensionless form. And typically here we consider a material which is a steel. This is also because we are working for companies doing research. We are not allowed to tell the exact application, the material, and so on. Then always, when we publish papers, it's always very simple: a sphere on a flat surface with some steel, basic steel, and so on. Okay, then in this application, we have a steel material. Just this is the radius of the ball here, which is here 31 millimeter. It means nothing. In fact, there is no real application. And compared to that, we will have then that produce a contact radius of 1 millimeter. Okay, then maybe this is interesting because you can see 1 millimeter against 31 millimeter. Then it's about 3% of the radius correspond to the contact radius. And okay, this is the contact pressure, which is quite realistic. And then we will have now an inclusion. Typically, the inclusion, this is an example, but the inclusion, the radius of the inclusion is 15% of the half width of the contact. This is a zoom because it's very small. Okay, and we can move the inclusion at different depths. Can be at the surface, tangent to the surface, or at different depths. Here, I recall you that this is a ball on sphere, a ball on flat surface, sphere on flat surface. Then the maximum shear, the maximum von Mises stress is at about 0.5 half the contact radius, then 0.5 A. Okay, then now the first result is about the quality, the material of the inclusion, okay, which is the ratio lambda. Then lambda is the ratio between the inclusion Young modulus by the matrix Young modulus. Then when you have, for example, when you have 0, it means that the inclusion is a cavity. Okay. Then when you have infinity, it means that the inclusion is a stiff, is a rigid inclusion, in fact. When you have 1, it means that there is no inclusion. And here you can see, because the inclusion here is at the depth 0.2, and the radius is 0.15, it means that here the distance is 0.05. Okay? Then the inclusion here is not tangent to the surface. Then this is not the worst situation. Then what you can observe is that when yes, this is very close.
He said it's 0.2 times A, and with some radius up, it's 0.05.
Yes, this is 0.05. Yes.
0.05 times.
Yes. But after I will move the inclusion at different depths, it will be of different size, and then you will see all the results. Okay? Then what you can observe here is, for example, in the worst situation, when the inclusion is rigid, or it can be, for example, a steel ball in a polymeric matrix. Then a steel ball in a plastic or polymeric matrix, it's almost infinite. It will be almost like a rigid inclusion. Then you can see here that there is a peak of pressure. This is a maximum pressure compared to the Hertzian one. It's almost an over peak of three times the Hertzian pressure. Okay. And okay, now you have different results for different Young modulus ratio. And then when the inclusion has the same Young modulus as the matrix, you get the Hertz solution, which is for gamma here. I think there is a mistake. It should be there is a mistake with the color in the picture here. Okay, it should be this one should be for gamma equal 1 anyway. And for gamma equals 0, then the cavity, you can observe a decrease of the maximum pressure. Okay. Gamma is the ratio between the Young modulus of the inclusion by the Young modulus of the matrix. Now there is another important parameter. I will present you later this parameter, which is not only the Young modulus, but also the compressibility of the material. In this situation, this is really a cavity which is a gas, air, which is compressible. Now, for example, if you replace If you consider steel, and if you replace the cavity by a polymeric ball, you know that rubber is incompressible. Polymeric materials are incompressible. Then when you do that, you will see a completely different result. Okay, then this is not for this situation. I will go back to that later. Now we consider the radius of the inclusions. Then we start for a very small one, 0.05 times the contact radius to 0.29 the contact radius. This time, the depth of the center of the inclusion is 0.3 times the contact radius. Then in this situation, the gap between the surface of the inclusion and the contact will be 1%, 0.01. Then you can see the effect of that on the contact pressure. Okay, then you have a significant increase. In fact, what is important is maybe not really the size of the inclusion, but the depth of the inclusion, or how far is the surface of the inclusion compared to the surface. And I will give you later an explanation of that, and most important, very important practical application of that. Now this is the effect of the depth. Okay. Then this time we consider a cavity, then a void. There is nothing inside. Then we start from in this situation, and this is a small inclusion, which is 1/10 of the contact radius. And in the first situation here, you can see that the depth of the center is 0.11, which means that there is 1% of the contact radius material between the inclusion and the surface of the contact. Then this is the result, and even you have almost no pressure at the contact, in the center of the contact for this situation. And when the inclusion gets deeper and deeper, you can see, for example, that when the inclusion is at the Hertzian depth, not at the Hertzian depth, in fact, because the Hertzian depth here it's 0.5. 0.5 is the blue one here, 0.5 times the contact radius. This is the solution. Okay, you have a small perturbation. And to have no effect of that, typically, you have to keep in mind that the best is to have the inclusion at a depth which is equal to the contact radius. Okay, 2 times the Hertzian depth. And then there is almost no effect on the pressure. Although we are able to calculate the different stress within the material, what will be interesting here is to calculate the stress around the inclusion, at the boundary between the inclusion and the matrix. Why? Because, for example, if you calculate the shear stress, maybe you can know if you will have you may have some the two surfaces may be sliding, for example. If you have no cohesion, then you can have something like that. And also, you can calculate the normal stress at the contact interface, and you may estimate if you have a risk or decohesion or not. Okay, this is quite important for us. This is just the stress along the X, Y, and in the plane. Then maybe from that, what I can say is the idea is if you deal with contact between composite materials and homogeneous material, if you do not want to have an effect, for example, I speak about a composite blade on a steel disc, you have to manage to have the fibers far from the surface. And if you know the Hertz contact dimension, you should put the fiber at least at the Hertzian contact half width or contact radius. And if you do that, you will have no effect of the inclusions on the pressure distribution and the risk of failure of the other material. You can do that for a cluster of spherical inclusions. Okay, then we put many inclusions here. Then this is based on the HLB method. Okay, we just enrich the mesh by adding many inclusions. There is no relation between the inclusion and the original mesh. You can put, for example, one inclusion per cuboid, or 9, or 27, whatever you want. Then you can see on the left the pressure distribution. If the inclusions are softer than the matrix, then the Young modulus is half of the one of the matrix. It is like if you have a rough surface. This is when the inclusion have the same properties as the matrix, then this is the Hertzian pressure distribution, and here this is when inclusions are stiffer. Now, if you have a closer look at the solution, this is not really what you will have if you have a bisinusoidal surface, because you can do that with a rough surface. It's not exactly the same solution. These are some cut of the pressure distribution. If you have a sinusoidal surface, in fact, the pressure will oscillate around the mean value, which is the Hertzian solution. Okay? But here you can see that when you have softer inclusions, in fact, the pressure, the mean pressure is lower than the Hertzian one. And when you have stiffer inclusions, the pressure fluctuation, the mean pressure is higher than the Hertzian pressure. Why? This is because if you calculate the equivalent Young modulus of the combination of inclusion plus matrix, for this situation, the equivalent Young modulus is softer, and here it is higher. Then that explains this type of results. Okay. But this is quite similar to what we can observe for a rough surface. And now we did the same for ellipsoidal inclusions, mostly to be able to simulate fibers. Then this time, about the same type of simulation, then the same contact pressure, the same contact radius, which is 1 millimeter, but the dimension doesn't have an effect because we are using dimensionless parameters. And then here we consider the classical type of inclusion is inclusion which is 4 times stiffer than the matrix. We have the dimension of the inclusions, and we have 2 dimensions that are the same, A2 and A3, and A1 is 4 times the radius of the inclusion in the plane 2, 3. Okay, then it's slightly ellipsoidal, but not too much. And these are the material of the inclusion, which can be either isotropic or orthotropic. Because when you simulate fibers, very often they are orthotropic. Because it's made of a long chain, it's typically orthotropic. Okay, first we did some simulation by the finite element method to be sure that we got the correct solutions, and we did that only one time. You can see on the left the solution for an isotropic inclusion, and on the right the solution for an orthotropic inclusion. Then, of course, depending on the mean Young modulus, you can slightly increase the contact pressure, or you can slightly decrease the contact pressure. And even if the inclusion is in the center of the contact, because it is with an inclination angle, this is not symmetric anymore. This is not axisymmetric. Then on the left, you can see again the effect of the Young modulus ratio. Then, okay, this time it's correct. You can see here when the Young modulus is the same as the matrix, you get the Hertzian pressure. When it is stiffer, you increase the maximum pressure. When it is softer, you decrease the maximum pressure. And on the left, it should be for okay, this is an ellipsoidal inclusions, but which is with a 0 angle, and which is horizontal, like that. And here, the inclusion is with an angle of 30 degrees. Then it is not like that. Then that explains why this is not anymore symmetric. And also you can see that in this situation, because the inclusion, okay, we can have a pressure which drops to 0 in one part. It depends on the material properties and so on. Okay, this is the same if you rotate the inclusion against the axis, which is normal to the plane. This is not. Okay, maybe I will will skip this one. There is many solutions. Okay, now we can also calculate the stress distribution. Okay, within the material. Then I would like to have a look on the stress here at the interface. Okay, then I will take into account two stress. One which is the shear stress at the interface, then in the plane perpendicular to the normal of the surface, and also the normal stress. Then we will have a reference frame that will rotate around the inclusion, and we will plot all this value. And these are the results. On the left, you have something with a spherical inclusion. Then typically we should start from this point, for example. Then you have, let's say, this is sigma n means the normal stress. Then when it is positive, it's in tensile stress. And when it is negative, it's compressive stress. But what you can observe here, for example, is that the normal stress is always negative. Okay? Whatever is the U modulus ratio. It can be in green, this is a soft inclusion. In red or blue, which is infinite rigid inclusion, you can see that everything is below 0. Then always, you have everywhere in compression. This is also why we say that for contact, we are mostly in compression everywhere. And here you can see the shear stress, which varies from negative to positive value because you have shear in one direction and in the opposite direction. It depends on where you are. And then you can now compare this value to the cohesion or the cohesion limit between the two materials. This is the same type of curve, this time for an ellipsoidal inclusions with the same parameter as before. And this is more perturbated, but again, you can try to plot the same type of curve, and also you see for the shear stress. Okay. Now, what you do with that, I don't know. You have just the data. You have to think about the application and what you want to show. Okay, then a few other results. When I said before that you may have a peak of pressure up to 5 times the Hertzian solution, this is this situation here. You can see 5. This is here for an inclusion, which is rigid, okay, which is inclinated, but the top of the inclusion is reaching the surface. Then it's tangent to the surface. And because this is rigid, you can have a very strong peak of pressure. Okay. Now, if you assume that your composite material is a polymeric matrix, you have some carbon fiber inside and so on, you may calculate the equivalent Young modulus, calculate the contact pressure and so on. In fact, in the reality, locally, you will have a very high peak of pressure. And if in front you have a steel material, you may damage it. And you do some fretting experiments, you will wear very quickly the steel material. Okay, in the middle, this is the effect of the tilt angle. This is not really important. And again, this is the effect of the peak, the depth, sorry. The effect of the depth. And again, when the inclusions is at the depth, which is here 0.7 times the contact dimension, so there's almost no effect. And the last one I wanted to show you is this one. Okay, I like this curve very much. Again, on the left, this is the same, but I would like to emphasize what happened for the middle picture and the right picture. Then, okay, then we consider the compressibility factor here, which is this one. Then when k tends to infinite, it means that you have something which is incompressible. Okay. Then again, it can be, for example, you can have a cavity with some oil inside or with some water. If you assume that the water is incompressible, it will behave like that. Or it can be something, a rubber part, which is incompressible. And then, if you have a cavity, don't remember where is the... well, anyway, if it is a void or a cavity, you have a drop of pressure until 0. And if the cavity is filled with something which is incompressible, you will have a peak of pressure. Okay? This is why not only the Young modulus is important, but also the compressibility, which is maybe the most important factor. And this is, okay, but this time mu corresponds, this is another view of the Young modulus, because we can express the elastic properties by the Navier coefficient, lambda and mu, or by the Young modulus or the Poisson ratios. And this one is equivalent to what you have on the left side. Then at the first, maybe the first thing you have, there is maybe, to resume what I said before, there is a few things to remember. The inclusions have almost no effect on the contact pressure distribution if it is far away from the surface. Let's say 1 time or 2 times the earth and pressure. This is the first thing. It can have a very strong effect on the contact pressure, especially when it is tangent to the surface or close to the surface. And what is important is the hardness of the inclusion and the compressibility of the inclusion. Okay. And one of the solutions to avoid any problem is to have a layer on the top of the composite material if you have a contact problem, like a strap, put a strap, something to avoid any contact problem. And now I would like to show you just to have an idea of what happens when you have some fretting contact with, it's very academic, then we have only 3 fibers, which are, the first case A, they are perpendicular to the contact movement. The case B, they are along the movement, because the movement of the sphere is along the x direction. And for C, they are normal to the surface. Okay, just 3 fibers to illustrate that. And these are the dimensions. Then you can see here that the inclusion, the radius is 0.13 times the contact radius, which is quite small. We have 3 fibers. They are well within the contact. And we have here a big gap between the fiber and the surface, which is 0.5 times the fiber radius, okay, which is significant. Because when you consider the Eshelby theory, when you have 2 closed inclusions, when there are 2 times, if you have 2 inclusions of radius 1, for example, if the gap between the 2 surface of the 2 inclusions is 2, there's almost no effect. If it is 1, you start to see some effect. And if it is below 1, you will see more effect. Okay, then this is a dimension, in fact, that you have to keep in mind. Then here we have a moderate effect of the presence of the inclusions. And also you can see here that between the 2 inclusions, the center we have 3 times air. Then that we mean that between them we have a big gap because no, we have one times air. In fact, this is the scale. Yes, this is the scale. Then we have a moderate effect. Okay, then this is the type of loading we will have. First, we apply a normal load, okay, and then we maintain the normal load. And then, when we have the maximum normal load, we will have a tangential load or displacement in one side and going back to the original position, and back and forward movement, like that, only one. Okay, these are the parameters, but not important. What is important here is the friction coefficient, because the stress will be linked to the friction coefficient. Then this is a view of what you can expect as a contact pressure distribution. You can see here that the peaks are very important, because the fibers are vertical. Here, the increase of the pressure is lower, typically 20% of the Earth's pressure. And now, okay, on the left, you can see the contact pressure. Okay, the contact pressure is the top curve here, and multiplied by the friction coefficient. And here you can see the shear stress. Okay, then we plot here. This is important to understand what I am explaining. Okay, this is that, this one. And for example, for Q, typically, yes, in fact, also, the dot line corresponds to the smooth solution, and the full line corresponds to the composite solution. Okay, this is the Hertzian solution for homogeneous body, and this is the solution for the composite material. Then when you plot that in this figure, for example, now I will plot the shear stress. This is the shear stress. Okay. Then, in fact, the red one corresponds to my cross here, and the black one corresponds to the line. And when you plot like that, you can see that in this area, you have Q equals mu times P, which means that you are sliding. And in this area, you have Q lower than mu times P, which means that here you are sticking. Okay, this is a Coulomb law. Okay, if you have a block like that in a plane, you apply tangential load. You have a friction coefficient mu, and you have a normal load n. When T is lower than mu times the normal load, it won't move, it will be sticking. And when you reach the limit, it cannot be higher. When you reach the limit, it will start to slide. Okay? Then this is the same here. We just divide T divided by the surface is the shear stress, Q, and N divided by the surface correspond to the pressure. If you assume that this is a uniform loading on the, okay? Then this is very important. When Q equals mu times P, here you have sliding, and here it is sticking because this is lower. Okay. Then what you can observe here is here this is sliding, sticking, sliding. And compared to the solution without fibers, it's almost the same. Okay, I will show you later the same view by the top. Okay. Then on the left, this is shear stress along the x direction, and on the right, no, it's okay. You have x and y here. X and y. X is yes. Qx is a shear along the x direction, and y is a shear along the y direction. Okay. Yes, along x. The movement is along x only. And this is a cut, then the abscissa is along X, and here the abscissa is along Y. Okay? Donc it's normal to see on the left side, you can see, because the X plane is along this direction, you can see the fibers. And here you are in the middle of the contact. You are just on the top of the middle fiber. Then you will not see the fiber by themselves, because this is just a cut view. Then we can do the same for this time when the fibers are along the direction of movement. Then you can see here the pressure distribution, okay, for the composite material. And here you can see in blue, this is the shear stress along the Y direction. And along the X direction, this is the red curve. Okay. You can see the movement. This is loading, the fretting displacement. This point is moving like that. Okay. It corresponds to the same simulation. Then for the third situation, we have 3 vertical fibers. Then again, on the left, this is in the XZ plane. On the right, this is along the YZ plane. And you can see here, you have, because you are you can see only 1 fiber. On the other plane, you can see the 3 fibers. And something interesting, maybe it was too fast. I don't know if I can stop that easily. I will try to stop it. Ah, zut. Okay, I don't know how to stop when I start. Okay, maybe. Okay, this is interesting, this one, because here you can see that. Here the shear stress equals the pressure times the friction coefficient, then which means that here it is sliding everywhere. Okay, sliding, 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 hop, and here this is lower. Then it is sticking. Then there is a small spot where the 2 surfaces are sticking, and here there is a larger area when it is also sticking. Okay. Which means that when you want to study fretting wear of composite materials, it is a little more complicated. You may have macroscopically sticking and sliding area, and locally sticking and sliding area. Then this is the same type of plot, but this is a top view this time. Then on the left, you have the composite solution, and on the right, you have the homogeneous solution without fiber. Okay, and this is for the first situation. Then normally you should see here 3 fibers, 1, 2, 3, and here there is no fibers. And again, we will move this this way, and this is X, and we are in this plane. Okay, then we will see soon the presence of the 3 vertical fibers, and now we move in one direction, and then this area, in fact, in blue, was a sticking area, because at the beginning everything is sticking, and when it starts to slide by the border of the contact, and because it is moving, there is a small area which remains sticking. The same now in the center, this is sticking, and it disappears, and like that. Okay, and this is a homogeneous solution. You can do the same for the second situation with fibers parallel to the movement. And so we will see again the 3 fibers. This time they will be horizontal. Okay. And the blue area is a sticking domain that disappears after a while. And the last situation is for vertical fibers.
Is that negative shear is sticking, negative shear is sticking?
No, because shear means you slide in one direction or the other one direction. Then it's normal that shear can be positive or negative. And also because we have a movement like that, in fact. Okay. Now to know if it is sticking or sliding, this is the Coulomb law. When the tangential load is lower than the friction coefficient times the normal load, this is sticking. Okay. Now, if you divide that by the surface, a force divided by a surface corresponds to a stress or a pressure. Then this one corresponds to this one. This is the shear stress. Q for me is the shear stress. And then in this area, for example, Q is lower than mu times n divided by the surface. Then this is equivalent to sticking, and when it is sliding, you reach the limit, and it is sliding. No, here, in fact, the color corresponds to the shear stress. Then, also because okay. First we have vertical loading, and then okay. In fact, the displacement is radial. At the beginning, the displacement is radial, and because here we plot x and y. There is a projection in one direction and the other one direction. But normally, if you have a sphere on a flat surface, if you take two football balls, okay, if you push them together, if there's the same ball, when 2 points will come in contact, you have the surface like that, you deform the two spheres. When 2 points will come in contact, they will move in the same direction, okay, like that for the top. Like that. In fact, it's symmetric. Then there is no sliding. But now, because we have a composite material and we have a steel material in front of them, when the 2 points are touching each other, they are sliding because stiffness is not the same. Okay, and then normally the displacement is radial, is like that. This is the relative displacement or the relative sliding between the two surfaces. And here, because we plot Qx shear, this is just the projection of that on x. Qx, then this is why this is not axis symmetric, but it should be in a radial reference frame. It should be axis symmetric. Okay, but just the color here corresponds to the sign of the shear stress. To know if it is sliding or sticking, we have to go back to the previous slide with the profile. When the two curves are touching each other, this is sliding, and where they are different, this is sliding. Of course, because we have a movement in one direction, also there is a symmetry here. Okay, you can have something like that, and here it will be sliding, and here sticking. I don't know if you observed that before. Okay, there is a negative value here, but you can compare the two curves. Then I don't know what I wanted to show. Maybe the last one. Okay, then the same, just remember that at the top of the two fibers, sometimes you are fully sliding, and sometimes you may have some local sticking domain. Okay, just then can also observe some very strong stress concentration. Okay, this is just an application to fretting, and again, when you observe macroscopically what happened, and this is for the 3 simulations, we just plot vertically. This is the shear, the tangential load along the x direction, which is the vertical axis, and the horizontal one is the displacement along the x direction. There is almost no difference between the 3 curves, which means that macroscopically you have no difference. So differences are only very localized. Okay. Then we start from this point. We move in one direction until here. We go back here. There is no force. We have a displacement. We go until then, and we come back to the origin. And also something interesting here is that okay, there is a displacement from this point to this point. This may explain, for example, you know, when you have a camera autofocus, there is something which is vibrating like that, and that produces this type of movement. This is a mechanism that produces the movement of autofocus camera, because when, okay, due to the asymmetry of the fretting problem. Okay, and also maybe I will skip that. We can do many other things. This is the effect of the friction coefficient. Okay, there is many other results. Okay. Then with that, we can deal with the composite materials. Of course, we will not consider the micro geometry of the fibers. And these are the fibers we call about the yarn. And then we are able to model typically blade materials, and especially what happened at the contact. This was our first application. And to reproduce like that fibers, in fact, we use ellipsoidal inclusions. Then with WISTEX, we have a program, WISTEX, made by a Belgium researcher, by Lomov, famous professor in Belgium. And then this is the center of each fibers, in fact. And we can, for each point, add an inclusions, which is ellipsoidal inclusions, and to reproduce the same stiffness as the fibers. And we have been able to construct like that 3D massif, 3D bodies, like that. And we are able to do simulation for real parts. Then we only develop the tools, and now our partners are using that for their own purpose, but we don't know what they do exactly with that. And okay, this is what I said just before. And now we like to show you an application of that to rolling contact fatigue. Okay, this is what I discussed just before. I think. Okay, and this is the 3D mesh. You can see for real application. There is no result, but this is how it works. Okay, these are the conclusion, but I think I need to move. And then okay, an application to bearing steels fatigue. Then this time we will investigate the shape also of the inclusions, because carbide typically they are not spherical. They are mostly like small cuboids. The shape is very complicated. So we need an hardening law like that. And again, I will just show you a few results about the effect of the position of the inclusions and the shape. Then in this situation, gamma is a Young modulus ratio. there is two parameters here, which are alpha, which is depth of the inclusions, and beta, which is the radius of the inclusions compared to the contact radius. Then on the left you have a stiff inclusions, and on the right you have again a soft inclusion. And this is a comparison with the finite element method. Then you have a good agreement. Now this is the shape of the inclusion here. Then you can see a more complex pattern for the pressure and for the around the inclusions, and there is many results in these two figures. And the blue curve corresponds to the solution which is elastic without inclusion. With cross, the blue curve here with a small losange correspond to the elastic plastic solution without inclusion. In this situation, this is for a soft inclusions, and the black curves correspond to the same solution for the elastic plastic regime. Then on the top you have the elastic solution for the pressure distribution, and for the bottom curve here with the small square, you have the solution of the pressure distribution for the elastic plastic contact. Then you can see some strong perturbation again of the contact pressure. Okay, this is the same. This is the difference between a sphere. There is a sphere and a cube. As you can see some difference. Then logically, the blue one corresponds to a sphere, and here the black one corresponds to a cube. Okay, and this is the top blue curve corresponds to a stiff spherical inclusion, and the bottom blue curve corresponds to a stiff spherical inclusion, and the top black curve corresponds to a stiff cube, and the bottom black curve corresponds to a soft cubic inclusion. Okay, so this is the effect of the geometry. What is important here again is mostly the depth of the inclusion here, and you can see that when the depth is 0.6 times the contact radius, here for a cube, you have a little effect on the pressure distribution. And if you use a point for one times the contact radius, there is almost no effect. Okay, it's the same as I said before. This is just for a different geometry. And then we have been able to study fatigue of materials like that, using different type of inclusions of different geometries, different size, different materials, and it's possible using artificial intelligence, for example, to perform many simulations and to try to get some trends. Okay. And this is interesting to see that, for example, there is a combination of effect, small versus large inclusions, inclusions that are close or not to the surface, and also the stiffness of the inclusions. Okay. Typically, carbide are not very stiff. They are slightly stiffer than steel. The most detrimental type of inclusions is alumina. Alumina for bearing steels, because the Young modulus is in the order of 400 megapascal, which is quite the double than steel. Then this is very detrimental. If you consider carbide, the Young modulus is lower, is less critical, and also for carbide, they are very small. However, sometimes you can have stringer of carbides. Then when you have stringer, they can interact each other and be quite critical. Okay, then this is another type of simulation, but you have all the material in the document, then maybe I will let you have a look on that. You can also calculate the plastic strains. The red curve corresponds to the homogeneous body without inclusions. Okay, you have many things like that. When you have to analyze the materials, the results, something which is interesting is to calculate the overall plastic strains, which means that you have to integrate the plastic strains within all the volume. This has been proposed by colleagues from Northwestern. I think it's a good idea. And okay, there is many other things like that. I think I can move maybe to the tutorial. Okay, I have many, and also you can also know the principal direction. Then the principal direction are interesting for fatigue problem because we know that one of the most critical parameters is the maximum tensile stress, or the first principal stress, and the direction of the first principal stress, which is one very important parameter for fatigue analysis. Do you have questions about that? The effect of inclusions and so on contact mechanics?
Mathematical model, what is that?
It's the same than I said for the elastic plastic. The same type of equations. We use the same. This is based on also on the semi-analytical. Yes, this is the same. In fact, the same tool, and also based on the HLB theory.
Green function, is it?
Yes, green functions. Yes.
And also you showed this minimization of fundamental energy.
Yes.
Is that formulation you are using?
The same. Yes. In fact, we have a single tool. We call that ISAC, and
Which tool?
the name of what is, he has a small name in the lab, which is ISAC. Anyway, this is the name of the solver, and we are developing it since now 20 years. Each time we start a new PhD, about 20 PhD students did their work on that, only purely numerically. And each time we start a new PhD, we try to implement a new box in the tool. The tool is developed on a platform, SVN platform. Then we have the history of the development. We have many run cases because you have seen here maybe 30 different simulations or maybe more. Then what we do each time we implement a new solver in the tool, we check that there is no modification on the results since 20 years. Then we have a regression bench test that we run during the night. And we are working mostly for one company, then they have an update each 6 months or each year on the tool. We have a documentation. Okay. Everything is done on the same tool. Okay. For example, today we start a new PhD. We try to integrate the effect of compaction, typically for road, because for road you may have some materials that are porous. And when you have some pore, some void, when you compress the material, you can have the void can disappear, vanish. Then we try to simulate the compaction of voids, for example. We are also working on viscoelastic materials. Then each time we develop, then you ask me just before lunch. Then for viscoelastic materials, the latest development that we did this past year, this month in fact, was periodicity. Then we can have a patch which is very small, and we consider that everything is periodic in each direction. Okay, then we are working like that. The same tool since 20 years. And a lot of people have been working on that. They are working in companies. They can use the tool for themselves. Also, we have an engineer that is maintaining the code. Then, and he's also teaching to students how to make a nice code, how to compute properly. And okay, there is only a single tool. And Abaqus when we need to validate with Abaqus when we need to validate with the field element method. But we don't develop Abaqus. We just use Abaqus. Then, okay. You have a question?
I saw a couple of slides before the plastic strain is not, it's not affected by the function. Is that
No.
for even the software?
No, it should be affected, but no, very locally. Maybe I don't know which.
Couple of slides.
Plastics, no, this one. This one?
No. Maybe I didn't read it. It was almost at the end of it, just before it in a couple of slides.
Plastic strand, plastic strand.
No, no.
No, in fact, there is a lot of plasticity in the vicinity of the inclusion.
So it is actually.
Yes, yes. Okay, then maybe the tutorial will not be very funny, but
Sir, one more question actually. So you're working around in macro scale actually. All the problems like structural problems of cutting, we are operating in macro scale only.
hmm?
But the contact area usually will come around some macrons itself, like 100 microns or
Hmm.
something like that. And the inclusion which you are taking into account, that also will be in comparable range to contact size actually. Like
Yes, yes.
so. It will be also like a micro scale limitation, no sir? Because if it is like 50 micron contact, if you are having 50 micron or 30 micron kind of a contact radius you are having, and you are having an inclusion of say porosity or something of the dimension,
Hmm.
of a color dimension.
Okay, maybe for bearing steels, typically the inclusions are smaller than the contact size. If you have 100 micrometers of contact size or 200 micrometers, inclusions will be 10 or 20 micrometers, then it's 10 times smaller. And size, it's always like that. We don't have large inclusions. But the situation when you have very large inclusions correspond to the composite material, because you can have very large fibers. And you have sometimes only 2 or 3 or 4 fibers within the contact. But it works for that too. There is no limitation. There is no limitation.
Like if you're talking like porosity is all right there.
Ah.
Taking like a porosity is around 50 microns.
Yes. Okay. Then porosity can be very, very small.
Yeah.
But we can, after you have to develop the tool to see what happened, but we work with cuboids, but we can put in the cuboid some small, very small porosity, small inclusions. And then you have a two-scale approach. After you can make a zoom on that. Okay? No, it's just, in fact, we have only, academic code, and we don't have interface to plot all the data and so on. We just work with a text file and
Manufacturing events actually, in our apprenticeship, we will add porosities at the surfaces only, element surfaces.
Mm.
The size is almost coming near to the size of the contact radius, almost like that. If you are having very low load kind of thing.
yes. Yes, but we didn't plot that, and I think we can calculate the stress field because we use the HLB technique. We can calculate the stress field and displacement field around an inclusion. But if it is very, very small, we have no way to calculate the effect on the pressure because we calculate the pressure for each cell. We assume that the pressure is uniform for each cell, as I showed at the beginning. And,
Like that can influence the sticking and slippage.
yes, but okay, next time, next year. Okay, then I have to remove the key. What I do? This way. okay. I don't know how to have that in full scale, maybe. Okay, then
Control L, so
Control L. Control L. And to have zoom,
Control plus.
Control plus. Why is a plus? Plus. Okay, thank you. Okay, then I will give that to Kesavan. He will send that to you. This is just to explain. Okay, the idea here is to calculate the rigid body displacement for the contact between a cylinder and a flat surface. Okay, the Hertz theory, I told you that there is no exact solution for that. When you want to calculate this displacement, you have to make some assumption, such as the displacement is nil at a given depth, because the shape of the displacement is a logarithmic shape, then it does not tend to zero at the infinite. Okay, then this is what we do with our student. This is done for undergraduate student for the last year we have at INSA. Then the idea is to calculate the solution of this problem. Then this is typically the work of Boussinesq and Cerruti. Then we have, in fact, this is a 2D problem. We have a point load. Okay, this is the depth, but it's not important. In fact, it's a 2D problem, and we will calculate for a point which is this one everywhere here. We will calculate the displacement. Okay. And if you remember, I will not open again the file, but I have shown you, a slide with the Boussinesq solution and the Cerruti solution, the displacement. It was written there. Then I will demonstrate that. Okay. And why I do that is because somebody this morning asked me if I know the solution for the problem. I will explain you with my words. Okay, this is, I translate what he said. I have this problem, I have a thin sheet like that, can be in steel or in polymer, it doesn't matter. I have two rollers, one on the top, one on the bottom. Because here we have a finite length, a finite thickness, is the Hertz theory valid or not? Okay. Then I responded to him that to me, if you calculate here the contact pressure, maximum pressure, and the contact dimension, you should have about the same solution. Okay, even if it is very, very thin. Okay, because here you have the shear stress field, the von Mises stress field, and if it is getting very close, you will have here a mix of the two fields. Then there is some difficulties, but I assume, I didn't make the simulation, but I assume that the Hertz solution will be okay for the Hertzian pressure and for A. Okay. Now this was not the question. The question was what is the rigid body displacement, or what is the elastic deflection? And in fact, what is delta? Yesterday I presented in one of the slides 8 or 10 different equations to calculate this displacement when you have two rollers in contact, because there is no exact solution. Then I assume that here we can calculate that by ourselves. We will do that today, now, and I think that you just have to follow that and you will find the solution. Then my assumption is that in the middle of the plane, here, you have no displacement, okay? Because, let's say, I make a zoom on that, Then initially, the surface is here. Due to loading, the surface will move up to here. Then you can calculate for each point here, you can calculate how it will move normally. However, the point which is in the middle, due to the symmetry, the displacement will be nil. Okay? Which means that if you take this point, then if this is, let's say, half the size of the thickness of the sheet here, you can say that u z at depth z equal b by 2 should be 0. Okay? This is by symmetry, this is normal. Then we will go back to the Boussinesq and Cerotti theory, and I think that we can find the solution. This is what we ask to our student. In fact, we ask first, I don't remember if it is a 2D problem or not. If yes, if it is a plane strain or plane stress, then if the thickness here is very small, this is a 2D plane stress problem. If the thickness is very large, this is a 2D plane strain problem. To solve that, in fact, we use what we call the Airy function. It's a potential technique, potential functions. Then after, we will calculate the, okay, in English, in French, we call that the, okay, I don't know if you know this term, the stress vector. Is it okay? The stress vector, we calculate the stress vector at the surface here on both sides. We say that and you have the point load here. We're interested by this point, M. I think there is here an angle theta. This is R. And then and we will calculate here and here the stress vector, which is with my notation, it's T at M, for example, this point.
Call it as traction, I think.
Traction vector. Okay, traction vector. And this is ER. This is a vector E theta. Okay. Then for this point, the normal is this one. Okay, which is equal to E theta when theta equals plus p by 2. And then we say that for this point, the traction vector equals the stress tensor by the normal. Okay. Then we calculate that here. We calculate the same here. For this point, theta will be this way. Then in fact, this is E theta. Theta for theta equal minus p by 2. Then here, this is n étoile, n2 star. Here, n étoile equals E étoile. For the other one, and this one, because there is no load on the surface, this is equal to 0. That will give a result. For on the left, you have the same. So 2 star, and you have sigma by, and because this is minus E1, you have this one. Okay, anyway, these are the boundary conditions. With the boundary conditions, you can find the shape for the stress tensor. And now the difficulty will be to, and although we can verify that the solution with the Airy function, we can check that the solution tends to 0. I mean stress and strain tends to 0 when you are far from the contact. And when R tends to infinite, I will show you that everything tends to 0. Now the difficulty will be to calculate the effect of the point load. This is a point load. And for that, we will have to consider a small disk like that. You have the point load. Okay. We will calculate here for each point on the disk here. We'll calculate the traction vector for a point M. And here, for this point, in fact, the normal n equal the unit vector along the radius direction. Then we'll calculate this one. Then we will integrate this vector here on the surface. And we will say that the sum of t, this value, projected, then here this is the x direction. In the figures, okay, this is, no, it's E2. Okay. This is E2. The vertical direction, this is E1. Then we'll say that the integral of this traction vector on this surface along the direction 2 equals 0. And the same for the vertical, then we'll have P E1 plus the sum of T projected along E1 equals 0. Okay? This is the equilibrium of this small disk. And then doing that, you will find the constant that is missing. Okay. And then knowing the stress tensor, it will be possible to calculate the strain tensor. Okay, this is trivial. And then by integration, we will calculate the displacement field. Okay, and what we will do, because when you integrate, you will add a constant. And to find the constant, we will say that at this depth, it is nil, in the middle of the plate. Okay, this is the principle. Then, okay, this is the problem, but I would like to show you the solution. And hopefully it is in English, because sometimes we have to teach in English. Control. Okay, first we have something about, I hope it is in English. No, this is not the English one. I have to take the English one. To be this one. Okay, then this is the plane strain problem for us, because we have the thickness is very large. These are the equilibrium equation. Using the potential theories and the Airy functions, we can calculate the stress sigma 1, 1, which is a vertical direction, sigma 2, 2, which is horizontal 1. And also, okay, then we can move from Cartesian to polar coordinates. Okay, then the Airy function, you have to, this is a biharmonic function, then the Laplacian of the function equal to 0. And then knowing that, then you have to calculate all this term. You can demonstrate that this is correct. Okay, and then now, what is important here is the stress tensor. This is the stress tensor. Okay. Then in the reference frame, which is this one, I don't have color gray, and this is the reference frame here. And what you have to know is that the stress tensor is this is the potential function that gives you this solution. Okay? And as I said before, by doing the equilibrium of this function here, of this half disk, you can calculate this constant. Now you can check here what happens when R tends to infinite. Sigma RR tends to 0. Okay, then this is okay. The solution is correct. Now if you multiply this one by either this vector or this vector, plus or minus 1, it's always 0. Okay? Then this is the correct solution. You satisfy the boundary condition, all the boundary conditions, and at the infinite, everything tends to 0. And this is the correct solution. You have just a problem at the center because you have a singularity, because you have a point load. Then here, the stress tends to infinite. You cannot work on this point. You have to be away from this point. And when you do that, okay, what I said before, this is what I explained very quickly. This is the half disk we are looking for. And when you do that, you find the constant, which is A equals minus P over pi. Okay. This is the constant A by doing the equilibrium, as I said before. Then now we know the stress tensor because here we know that A equal minus P over pi. Then now we just have to do that, calculate epsilon, and then calculate the displacement. And so we have to make some change of reference frame to switch from Cartesian coordinates to a cylindrical frame. Okay, I can steep this one too. Okay, and now then you know classical Navier equation. Then you can, knowing the stress, you can calculate the strain here. And also to calculate the displacement, you have to use this equation, so you have to integrate. Okay. Then we have a 2D problem. Then okay, depends on that. This is the solution if you look at the Tresca shear stress. This points tend to infinite. Now the integration is not very easy because when I do that with students, it's very long. Okay, but okay, there is several equations. I can show you again the equations that we are looking for. These are these equations, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and you have to integrate that. In fact, there is different way of integrating displacements, and I use another technique. But here we can use this technique, which is intuitive. because it's quite simple. It's 2D. We don't have to manage to deal with all the equations. But okay, you have to integrate that. Then you find the shape of the displacement. U will be along the R. This is the radial displacement. V will be along theta. And then at the end, you have this form. You have the solution of the homogeneous equation, solution of the particular solution of the full differential equation. H is the homogeneous equation, and so on. Okay. Up. Okay, and this is the solution. This one at the bottom. You have the displacement along R and the displacement along theta. Okay. Now, in this equation, you can say, for example, theta equals 0. If you are looking only for the displacement for this line, this is what you are looking for in this problem. Okay. Then we put theta equals 0. And then you can see here the displacement, which is only, okay, you have a constant here, and you have the first term. Then now the solution, if I can, then I will erase everything here. You can say that U for R theta equals 0 equals 2 P cosinus theta PE and B is a constant to determine, which is unknown. Okay, and now you just have to say that U for R equal B divided by 2. And this is the solution. Then this is the minus, and B equal 2 P, cosinus is 1. And this is the solution. This is not really finished because this is only for a point load, but now you have a distribution of load. Then in the principle, what we do next is we have a pressure distribution like that. We make some small slice like that. Okay, so that here the integral, this is equivalent to local punctual load, and then for a point which is here, you have to integrate the effect of this load, then the effect of this one. Okay, you have to get numerically. I don't know if it is in the solution because
The A is the same A or different A? Here that A is there. Solution A is there. Is the same A in the Aristotle solution or the constant of integration of the second order?
No, you are right here. The A is different. I think the A corresponds to this one, A and B. Yes, these are the integration constant. This is due to the shape is homogeneous. The solution of the homogeneous equation, which is this one, A sinus. Okay, it should be alpha beta, but this is not the same A. You are correct.
But A, you will not get the A from that.
No, the A is obtained by the equilibrium of this disk. Okay. It was just before.
1/8, that's also 1/8.
Yes, maybe calculate the traction vector here with two components, and then you integrate to have the resultant, and then you project along the one direction and along the two direction. And this is how to obtain the parameter A. Here. You can see here, this is, you can see that the resultant has only a component along the direction 1. And this is, okay, this A is not the same as after. Okay, then, I don't know. Okay, now this is for distributed load. Then this is the graph I put on the bottom. To do that, you have to switch to Cartesian reference frame. Then here, everything is expressed along the 1 and 2 directions. This is no more the polar or circular reference frame. Then these are the solutions. This is quite similar to the Hertz problem for a cylinder. This is, in fact, what he did. This is the way we integrate everything. And then these are the solutions for the stress here. If the pressure is uniform, and if the pressure is not uniform, you have to integrate that. Okay, then this is the solution. Okay, then this is how to find the solution for the problem of a thin sheet between two rollers. If you want to calculate the displacement between the two centers under load. And this way, I think you will have the correct solution. I didn't do that, but and then K7 will be able maybe to send you this document to all of you, especially to the ones that were asking me this morning how to solve that. Okay? Do you have any question?
What is the type of load that corresponding to what loading situation? What is the loading situation for the situation this one conductor?
This one I don't know. I have no idea. It's just maybe I don't know. But you know, when you for metal forming, sometimes you have a very huge machine like that. You have a very thick sheet of metal. You have two big rollers, and the name in French is laminoir. This is typically, then you have a speed here, which is a small speed. And here the speed is very large. Okay, but I think this is not the problem, but the problem is mostly about, I don't know, if you have a maybe if it is if you have no more question, maybe you can stop here.
So,
And tomorrow we will work on fretting.
the inhomogeneous material contact pressure situation, there is a validation with some experiments also in that. It's not easy because you can't measure.
Yes, we tried, but it was not successful. We tried, but
How did you measure contact pressure?
you can use a pre-scale paper. You know, it's like a Fuji film. This you have a red color, and depending on the intensity of the red color, you can estimate the maximum pressure. You have different pre-scale paper depending on the load level you have, but it's complicated and it's very costly because each paper is very expensive. And yes, it's difficult to measure the pressure using a contact. There is also for contact between a tire, you know, and a road. There is some sensor. Then it's a large plate. You have many sensors, maybe 100 by 100, and you can have a measurement of not the stress, but mostly the load for each cell, and you can have an idea of what happened for the contact between a tire and the road. But
And you today you initially started by showing a shoe contact also, right? Shoe.
yes, yes.
So there also I think they put some films in the.
Yes, or you may add in the shoes, you may add some particles. And as I was presented before, it is like if it is a rough surface. When it is without load, it's a flat surface, and under load, it's a rough surface. Okay. Thank you. See you tomorrow.